history of Petaquilla?
Well, Petaquilla has a history that goes back actually several hundred years to the time of the discovery of America, when first Christopher Columbus landed here on his third voyage and wrote into his logs that he saw more gold on the indigenous people of the area than he had seen on all his previous trips combined. This historical fact played a key role during particularly the empire of Charles V, where they brought over 21 tons of gold to Spain in a period of some 70 years. It really sort of jumps forward all the way to the United Nations Development Program in the early 60s, when copper is discovered in the area, and as a result of that copper discovery, a series of initiatives are undertaken during the 60s and 70s. By the late 80s, the project had been dormant for almost a decade, and at that time, because of the economic conditions of Panama and the availability, we undertook an initiative. First, as part of this group, we defined as Geotech and Geogroup, and then later building an alliance with Adrian Resources, which name was transformed to, as we know today, Petaquilla Minerals. During that long history, most pertinent on the international investment level was the incorporation of the prior existence of Inmet Mining, which was at that time expressed as a company which was later taken over by Metallgesellschaft called Minova. And so a series of permutations occurred that finally left us with Inmet as our partner. And later in the mid-90s, we incorporated Teck, and during this decade, we carried out a positive feasibility study to lever on a much larger scale, about 90,000 tons a day, the copper district. And during that feasibility study, a standalone gold deposit was defined that was known as Molejon. So we come into this last decade in a scenario where, after another long bear cycle in the metals market, we restructure the joint venture of Minera Petaquilla as such so that Petaquilla Minerals can move forward on the gold project. This constitutes a renegotiated agreement with the government on what was the Ley Petaquilla, which was achieved during the late 90s. After this period and renegotiation, so during this period at the end of last decade, the mid part, 2003, 2004, after a very long dormant period of almost like 7 years, we reactivated with the idea of developing the Molejon Gold Project, which actually then is developed and commissioned in April of 2009 and reaches commercial production in January of 2010. Today, we are starting to see now the actual building of the copper project, which is about a $5 billion project, and this will play a very key role as we move forward, given our subsidiary company called PDI, which stands for Panama Development of Infrastructure. And so as the project moves forward, the diversity both not only of established gold production, but the emerging of a world-class copper producer in its incipient stages of the actual construction and projected production in 2016 and 17.
Thank you. Do you believe it's possible to have a successful mine with positive economic, social, and environmental results?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of possible. It's the only way really a mine can be developed today. Stakeholdership analysis of a mining company or a project is fundamental to its success, given the standards of financing and regulatory environment at the international level. A stakeholdership is a fundamental process to define all the people to be affected by what is, to a large degree, a non-sustainable economic activity it can only become economically sustainable by integrating with other regional development factors. So I'd say yes, in the 21st century, the only way to develop a mining project is to have it integrated into the regional development concepts.
What are the issues that most concern you with regards to the mining industry?
Well, the mining industry today, as we enter the 21st century, is challenged by this stakeholdership, also by what is defined as social responsibility, and whether it's first generation or second generation, being very a concept of passive support to social forces versus active development of socioeconomic forces being really the underlying factor between the first and second generation. So as the mining industry moves forward, it needs to redefine its vocabulary, needs to define its culture, and in this sense, what do I mean vocabulary? It needs to think about, in more expansive terms, the water needs, the energy needs, the community needs, and those need to be looked at within a larger spectrum of not only perhaps the project life, but a generation or two of the community. And in this sense, as we move into the 21st century, the opportunities will become substantial, given that the consumption of metals, as the world develops more advanced societies, the demand side of the industry will continue to grow and perhaps outpace supply. And this environment, a lot of technological development will have to come about. And this is a challenge for an industry that has not been known historically for technological developments. And so the culture of continuance versus the culture of change that's brought on by technology will present both challenges and opportunities for those in the mining sector.
Could you tell me why someone should invest in Petaquilla over another mining company?
Well, I don't think that question is not framed properly. It's not about why should you invest. It should be more of what are the attractives of Petaquilla, not vis-a-vis. I mean, the diversity of the mining industry is so huge. I mean, as a company, Petaquilla is very focused on its core competency, which is to be a gold producer and to build a reserve base that will allow it to grow to a mid-tier producer in the 300 to 1,000 ounces per year plus range, and at the same time have a reserve base of at least 10 years at that production rate. And that's a very clear and distinctive goal that Petaquilla Minerals is moving towards. And the value that we see, given the structural impediments in the world economy, we see a strong gold price out through this decade. And in that sense, we have moved forward to acquire Iberian Resource Corporation to lay the groundwork for achieving our corporate goal of being a mid-tier producer with a 10-year resource base. I think that as we move forward in this sense, that will distinguish us very clearly to the shareholder. Additionally to that, Petaquilla Minerals as a group has very good experience in exploration and development of copper, and it will be something that's clearly associated within our reserve base, and we will be moving forward in the midterm to make sure that value is brought to our shareholder by the development of this presence of base metals. The third element that distinguishes us as a company is our development, our PDI subsidiary, which is here to take advantage of $17 billion of infrastructure that are planned to be developed in Panama over the next decade. And this one being, as I mentioned earlier, our sister neighbor project, Cobre Panama. Additionally to that, the expansion of the Panama Canal. And the third element is a $6 billion general infrastructure development project that the government of Panama has announced and will be implementing in the next 5 to 7 years. These three elements play a very important part in balancing our gold production strategy, which is our core competency, our development of shareholder valuation in copper and other base metals that is in our portfolio, and then the PDI, which represents a very important value driver for our shareholders in the near and midterm.
Is it still a good investment?
Well, it's very hard to define. Gold is a metal that for centuries has played a distinctive role as pivotal in major economic shifts in the world, and you can see this by going back and seeing how metals played a key part in the rise of the Roman Empire and in the definition of evolution of man from what they call from the Copper Age and the Iron Age to the Bronze Age. All metals have played a very fundamental part in defining the destiny of societies, and in this sense, no different in recent terms. I mean, after the Roman Empire, you had the caliphates, and where were all the caliphates during the domain of the Arab empires was again around metals in Iberia and Eastern Europe, and again the British Empire. The whole concept of the futures market was begun in the 1600s. So gold and metals will continue to play a preponderant role, and the major shift in development in the world today from traditional North American, European economic dominance to the establishment of the BRIC and the G20 are clear indications there's a major economic realignment of strength, and the 300 million Chinese that are aspiring to become middle class all are drivers to show a long-term strong demand profile for not only gold but all hard commodities.
Could you highlight the three most important risks that can affect your industry and how you would deal with them?
Well, I don't know if our industry and our company, because they're slightly different, but I'll address both. The challenge to the industries is maintaining what I think addressed what we talked about at the beginning of this interview, is that the industry has a new set of responsibilities that has to adapt to more rigorously to the environment and the community than ever before. It has to adapt technologically because the challenges of where the metals are present are more challenging every day. And it has to be more instinctive about its preservation, given that we live in a very changing economic order. And those three cents, I had really the financial terms, currencies, cost structures, are all very key part of the industry in the next 50 years. In terms of our company, well, we have diversified ourselves geopolitically from not only Panama, which is very much on an upswing, an economy that's being upgraded by international rating agencies, a young economy, a rising sun economy that has a bright future ahead of it, at least for the next 25 to 50 years. And where mining will play a predominant and preponderant role in its economy. In Spain, we have a very mature culture, a country that is reconnecting with its natural resources and as a challenge to their economic model, which is mature in age, needs revitalization of both historical and traditional. And in this sense, we have arrived at a very opportune moment in probably one of the most largest mineral belts in the world. And so I think that in that sense, our company has laid the groundwork well. We need to build on what we have. Having only 6 million ounces of gold, silver resource reserve base, our goal is to reach 10 million, and we'll be carrying out both exploration and potential acquisitions to reach that base level as we move to our mid-tier production. In that sense, our great success is a very sensitive